Hi everyone, it's Lisa Mears here. Thank you for joining me today. In a previous video, I showed you 4 ways to use border dies on your cards. And I'll link that video at the top right corner of this video and in the description box below in case you haven't seen that one yet. In this video, I'm going to take it a step further and I want to show you another way to use border dies, and that's by using them to create a fun outdoor scene. So I'll be making a fun spring scene card using border dies and of course stamped images. The stamp set I'll be using for my card today is the Hoppy Spring Stamp Set. This stamp set is a new stamp set from Pink and Maine. There are 6 adorable bunnies, there's some Easter eggs, a carrot, there's some flowers, and these little bunnies. There's one holding a balloon, one sitting in an Easter egg. So stinking cute. And the border dies that I'm going to be using today are the Pink and Maine Waves and Scallop border dies. There are 6 border dies in this set. There are some border dies that just have stitching on them, and then there's some others that have a scalloped edge. You can use the stitched borders and the scallop borders individually, or you can use them together by layering them together like I did in this card. But today I'm just going to be using the stitched border dies to make hills on my scene card. But I want to first start off by coloring up these adorable images on this stamp set. I stamped my images onto some Scrapbookcom heavyweight cardstock, and I stamped them with some Versafine Onyx black ink. And I'm using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens to color these up. These are watercolor pens. And I start out by just coloring these bunnies, and these bunnies are super easy to color. I'm just using the light gray marker and just putting a little bit of light gray around the edges of the bunny. And once I've done that, I will be taking my blender marker and just blending that marker towards the center of that bunny. I'm not coloring up the whole image gray, because I want to leave some white in the middle. So just adding a little bit of gray along the edges gives it a little bit of a shadow, and you can see all of that white left over in the middle. So I colored the remaining bunnies off camera, and here I'm just coloring up this last set of ears. I do add the pink haze to the middle of the ears as well as to the cheeks, just to add a little bit of pink tones to those bunnies. Now I'm going to color up this Easter egg. So the blue color that I'm using is ice blue. I do add a little bit of the ice blue and then blend it out with the blender. If you don't have a blender, you can always use a paintbrush dipped in water or a water brush. That will do the job as well. And between colors, you see me reaching my arm across the paper, and that's just because I actually have a paper towel on the other side, which I should have put it on the right side instead of the left side so I didn't have to reach across. But I'm just cleaning off the tip of my blender, because when I go into the next color and then need to use the blender again, I want to make sure that I don't have any of the previous color marker left on the blender before I go into the next color. And you should do the same thing if you're using a paintbrush or a water brush. Just make sure that it is clean before going into the next color by just dabbing it off on a paper towel with some water. So this purple color is the English Lavender, coloring up this egg in the English Lavender, and then I'll color up those flowers in a different color. I was going with a very pastel theme because it's spring. It's a spring card, and there are lots of pastel colors in spring. So that's why you'll see all of my colors. They're all very light colors. I will have a list of all of these colors that I use on my coordinating blog post at lisamearsdesigns.com. So if you are interested in duplicating any of these colors, you'll have a list that you can see what I've used. In addition, any of the products that you see here today, I will have links to those in the description box of this YouTube video as well as on my blog. And I always appreciate when you click on my links to make a purchase because it does help support me. Okay, so here I'm coloring up the flower. I colored up the bow on this bunny in the same English lavender that I used on the Easter egg. And then the orange color is pale orange, and I used that for not only the flower, the carrot, as well as this egg. So I'm just curious to know, what is your favorite coloring medium? What do you use to color your stamped images? What is your go-to medium? Do you like colored pencils? Do you like Copics? Do you use zig markers like I do, or do you use another kind of watercolor marker, or even another kind of alcohol marker? Let me know down in the comments and let me know what your favorite go-to coloring medium is. So here I'm coloring up the balloons. That blue is the ice blue. I'm also using the pale yellow on the stripes in the balloon, and then I'll come back in with the English lavender to color up the additional stripes. Next, I'll move on to the bow on the bunny. Again, I'm using the pale orange. Kind of color up both of the flowers. And then I'll color up the flowers on the last bunny at the top left. You can see the sentiments that are included in this stamp set. You're somebody special, happy birthday, happy Easter, and happy spring. So you can totally use this stamp set for someone who is having a birthday in the spring. I love that they've included a happy birthday sentiment in here. So I did use my dies to die cut all of these images out of the cardstock, and I'll set them aside as I start to work on the card layout. So next I'm going to take these Spring Posies foilable panels. These panels come in a set of 8 4 by 5 1/4 inch panels, and I'm going to add some foil to this. I first took an anti-static cloth and removed any of the dust particles on top. I'm going to do the same thing to my carrier sheet. Notice that I do have my Minc machine. It's starting to heat up. I'm going to go ahead and place this foilable panel inside of my carrier sheet, and I'm going to use the Pink and Main Tinsel Lavender Cheerfoil and place that on top with the lavender side face up, and I'm going to run that through my Minc machine. This will come out on the other side, and when it's finished, I will go ahead and remove the foil, and look how beautiful that background is. So all of those black flowers now all have the foil on top. It is such a pretty background. You can see all that sparkle. So now what I'm going to do is I am actually going to ink over top of this. I'm going to use some Mowed and Twisted Citron Distress inks, and I'm just going to put some of the Mowed all along the edges, and then I'm going to add the Twisted Citron, which is the lighter green. I'm going to add that on the inside. And the reason I'm adding green here is because this is going to be part of my spring scene, and this is going to look like grass with flowers within it. So I have all those pretty flowers with the grass, and I'm going to create little hills from this panel. And look how pretty that is. So now I'm going to go ahead and take these border dies, and I'm going to die cut this panel. There are 3 of the stitch border dies, and I'll go ahead and die cut those. So just kind of put them equal distance apart. I'm going to put some mint tape to hold these down, and then I'll run this panel through my die cut machine, but I am going to put just a piece of scrap cardstock over top of this panel before I run it through the die cutting machine. That way, if there's any little paper pieces on my die cutting plate, those paper pieces won't leave little marks on the foiled part of this panel. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and I'm going to take another piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to use those same dies and die cut this white panel with those same dies. So the reason I did that with the white cardstock is because I'm actually going to ink over this white cardstock with some more green ink. I'm using the Distress Ink Shabby Shutters. It's a little bit lighter of a green. These panels are going to be back to back against the Posies panels. So I'll have, for example, a set of solid green grass, and then I'll have on top of that, I'll have the Posies, and then green, and then the Posies. So I wanted there to be an actual distinction between the different hills on my card. So I'm adding the lighter ink, which will give it a little bit of a lighter distinction. And again, that's the Shabby Shutters, and then just adding some of the darker ink to the edges. I think that was the Mowed Lawn that I'm adding to the edges. And I'm going to do that for 2 out of the 4 panels. I'm actually not even going to use all 4. I'm only going to use 3 of these panels. 2 will be grassy hills, and 1 panel will be the sky. So this particular panel, I'm adding some tumbled glass ink. This is going to be my sky. So this is a very light blue ink that I'm just adding here to this panel. And another thing I want to mention that I love about these border dies is that there's stitching. When you die cut the paper with the border dies, you get stitching on both sides of the die. So if you look at the die cut piece that's sitting there on the table, that has the solid green, it has stitching on the top and bottom. So next I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock. I cut this white cardstock to 3 3/8 by 8 3/8, and I'm just layering on all of these hill side panels. So I started with the Posies at the bottom, and then I added a solid green, and now I'm adding another Posies, and I'll add another solid green. Now try to get them to line up, but if they don't line up, it's okay, because you can do like I did here and just stick the panel a little bit behind the previous panel, and then you don't have to worry about the stitching. Actually, I'm going to cut this panel so that it fits a little bit better behind this Posies panel. So if they don't line up, it's perfectly fine. Just tuck them in behind the previous panel. So I'm going to end with the blue panel up at the top because that is going to be my sky. Now these panels are going to extend beyond the edges of that white cardstock, and you can just flip your panel over, use a straight edge scissor just to cut the excess off. You can also use your paper trimmer to trim this down just to make sure that it is the 3 3/8 by 8 3/8 inches that you need to add this to a slimline card base. So I'll finish up by adding this last panel here, and then I'm actually going to off camera take this to my paper trimmer and just make sure that all of my edges are completely straight. Once I have all of the border die cut pieces onto the white panel, I'll go ahead and continue to build my scene with my stamped images. So I'm just playing with the position of all of these bunnies to see where I like them. And once I have them all positioned where I want them, I'll go ahead and glue them down. For the sentiment, I'm using the Hoppy Easter sentiment, which I went ahead and stamped and just cut out and added that to the top of the card. I'm going to back this onto a piece of purple cardstock since I have a lot of purple on this card, and the purple I'm using is from the Scrapbookcom Cools Slimline paper pad, and it's already measured for me at 3.5 by 8.5 inches, so I didn't have to cut it at all. I just had to add my card panel to the top and then add it to a slimline card base that measures 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So that's how I would use border dies to create a fun scene card. I love how this card turned out, especially layering the solid green with the foilable Posies panel. I think that is so super cute. You can also use these dies on a winter card to die cut them out of white cardstock to create snowy hills for a fun winter scene. So once again, all products will be linked in the description box below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like videos like this and want to see more, please click that subscribe button and turn on your bell notifications so that you'll be notified when I release new videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.